Hey, Jason Walker, welcome back to the Keep It Simple podcast. Right, do me a favor, go check out my website. Tell me what you like about it, what you don't like about it, www.lajaconsulting.com. You see I'm old school, I'm still doing the www, right? Most people just go lajaconsulting.com, so check it out. And let me know what you think. Remember I'm old school, so don't be too hard on me, right? Question that was asked to me, how do you know when it's time to bring on employees? When the revenue dictates or when the contract dictates, right? Remember, we're trying to keep expenses as low as possible to get to profitability as fast as possible, right? When the business dictates it, right? And so you gotta make a decision, right? As the business is growing, there's only so much you can do. Right? So you have to be, remember I told you this before? And if you're new here, welcome. You got to be relentless about your numbers, relentless about your expenses, relentless about managing your business. So if your revenue starts to increase and you're getting more customers, so you got to analyze your business, right? Because now you're introducing an additional set of expenses. Right? Not just one expense. People think, oh, well, I'm just hiring an employee. I'm just going to pay them, right? Unless they're a contractor, right? And there's a whole nother, I want to bring my lawyer friend on and let her tell you about 1099 versus employee and things like that, right? So I'm just going to touch on it, right? Unless it's a 1099 or W-2. When you bring on a W-2 employee, you get a whole different set of expenses that you've got to be aware of. And the revenue, remember the top line, the revenue has to support that, because not only do you have to pay their salary, right? You have to pay taxes upon them, for them. Like, wait a minute, Jason, they pay their own taxes. They don't pay their, no. As the employer, you got something called state unemployment tax, federal unemployment tax, Social Security tax, and things like that. And unbeknownst to you, you have to match what they pay. So good rule of thumb, for every employee you bring upon, say you're paying them, we'll keep the number simple, say you're paying them $10,000 a year. And of course, you're not going to pay anybody $10,000 a year, but $10,000 a year. Add 30% to that per year. Let's break it down per paycheck. So if they make $1,000, you got to pay them $1,000 plus $300 more. And that's just taxes and things like that. We're not talking if you're going to offer medical. You're not talking if you're going to offer employee savings, 401k, because there's administrative fees you got to pay for that as well, and things like that. So, people go, well, I just make them 1099. Just a little rule of thumb, right? So people say, well, they're 1099, right? So here's the difference between 1099 and W-2. And again, I'm going to bring my attorney friend and all the attorneys out there or who's listening, put it in the chat if I'm wrong, if I'm right, because this is going back a few years, right? So if what distinguishes an employee from a 1099, if you tell that person what to do, when to do it, when they have to be to work, when they can get off of work, they are an employee in the eyes of the IRS. They're not a 1099. So all of you are skating out there like, oh, I got these 1099 folk. I tell them to be here at 8. They got to leave at 4. They can't leave until I tell them to leave. You have an employee. And trust me, the IRS is going to come a-knocking. And you're going to have to pay interest and penalties and all of that jazz. So when the business determines when you got enough revenue to afford the employee, right? And I'm not saying you may have to start with a part-time employee. You may have to start with a seasonal employee. You may have to say, okay, my business season is, I'm a wedding planner or I'm a wedding business. My business season is, when people get married all year round now, but majority, my business season is April through September, or May through September. So, revenue is going to go up I'm going to have extra money. I'm going to be able to afford it. I'm going to run my numbers and say, okay, I can bring on one person, two people, okay, or I'm going to contract out this work to say, okay, I'm going to need a photographer instead of hiring a photographer. I'm going to contract out this work. I need a floral designer. Instead of hiring a floral designer, I'm going to contract out that work, right? So you're doing business to business. And the beauty of that is you get to write all that off, right? And I'm going to bring in my CPA buddy too, so we can talk about, keeping it real, keeping it simple for your business, right? Because I don't want, notice how to use a lot of technical terms, right? Because we want to keep it simple. So simple, when you bring on employees, when the revenue and the business can afford it, not before, right? Because you're going to be in the hole. Right? So yeah, you may have to do some creative things. You may have to subcontract. You may have to joint venture. You may have to partner. You may have to barter. But at the end of the day, my saying, we're in business to make money. And we're trying to get the profitability as fast as possible. So why would you bring on 10 employees or 5 employees or 4 employees or 3 employees or 2 employees, hoping that the revenue will increase for me to afford them? So again, like I told you in the previous podcast, if you're new here, welcome here. You're welcome. If you got to try to figure out how to run your business with a phone in the toilet to keep your overhead low so you can get the profitability faster. Hope that helps. The person who asked the question, when is the right time to bring on employees? Again, simple. When the revenue dictates, or you just signed a big, huge contract and you're like, okay, I could float a little bit until the contract starts paying, and then I could pay my employees. So that's a whole nother discussion. But again, simply when the revenue dictates it and when the business dictates it, where you can afford it. So keep it simple. Jason Walker, chat soon. Hey.